I'd like to welcome you to BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth. We're here with the incomparable Daren Muhammad. Your video's burning up the set, man.
Yes, sir.
Well, must be speaking truth to power.
Speaking truth to power, and as we always say, often imitated but never ever duplicated, Brother Don.
Okay, just quick question off the bat. Are you buying this thing? Do you believe the brother over at Johns Hopkins Hospital? I can believe he shot the doctor. My theory is the doctor cracked slick on him. But I just don't believe any black man taking care of his mother. It's just antithetical to our community. You're gonna be taking care of your mother, and then you're taking her life in the same day that you're supposed to be helping to save her life. I mean, are you buying it?
I'm not buying it at all, Brother Donnie. Normally when we see incidences like this, the first question we gotta ask, of course, is a logical question: who benefits from this? And I think when you hear all the discussion being talked about, it's not being discussed about his mom and the doctor creating some type of error, performing some type of error in terms of her hospitalization that led to her being paralyzed. And most of the patients who die in the hospital and most of the people that die in America are not killed on the streets, but they're killed in hospitals. We average at least 200 to 300,000 deaths, if not more, inside of the hospitals across the country. And there's still been no statistics released regarding how many people die in Johns Hopkins and the other hospitals in the city of Baltimore. But just the logical person could look at their common sense or use their common sense and say there's no way that this gentleman would kill his mother, because if his mother was paralyzed due to the Johns Hopkins surgeon, then clearly he could sue Johns Hopkins and win an award out of court and have an out-of-court settlement, as we saw a few months ago when there was a Jewish family that sued for a procedure that was done to their child that eventually led to the death of their child. And recently also a woman who took part in an asthma study who died as a result of, again, some negligence on the part of the doctors. So there's no reason to believe that because when our turn comes, or when it comes to a black man or black woman, that now the rules change or the odds change, that they wouldn't do the same thing, but he would actually kill himself and kill his mother. I'm not buying it, and I think we need possibly an outside investigator to investigate what really happened over there. When you look at the enormous amount of policing, and now the issue is not about the doctors and their negligence, but it's become an issue about policing and whether we should have security and armed police inside of our hospitals. So no, I'm not buying that, brother.
Today's Saturday, October the 2nd. On today's show, you alluded to the Bernstein administration at the state's attorney's office. What was your take on the topic? I think it was a Baltimore Business Journal article you read?
Yes, sir. This week's Baltimore Business Journal article, which talks about Bernstein making a complete overhaul of the state's attorney's office, and that once he is sworn in as the state's attorney, that what he will then do is outsource the state's attorney's office to many of the private defense law firms that backed and financed his campaign. And we have the numbers and statistics on that. So we will clearly see a setback, as Ms. Jessamy said, of 50 to 60 years ago. And the interesting thing was, in this article, Byron Walken mentioned that himself. He said they'll return to the 1960s, in which you unfortunately will have a feeding frenzy by many of these defense lawyers, and the ones that they will be feeding on will be like the great white sharks or the orcas, which are killer whales that will be feeding on the flubber of the sea lions or the seals in Baltimore City, which will be the majority black citizens in the city of Baltimore that they'll be making enormous amounts of profit off of with what they had planned for the state's attorney's office.
After all, we do have 2 new prisons coming to East Baltimore, so I guess they have to find some potential residents.
The whole saying is, if you build it, then they will come. So obviously they've built them, and they're planning to have our people, men and women and children, to fill those prisons that they're planning to build.
Okay, an update on the Ken Harris murder trial. You said that it's gone to deliberation.
Yes, sir, it's gone to deliberation, and which means it's now in the hands of the jury. Up to the majority blacks that are on the jury. There's one white that's on the jury.
Let me just, after the last interview, it just dawned on me. It was so as clear as day that one of the main arguing points for Bernstein was that the state's attorney's office wasn't doing their job. Just back me up a little bit. Was it one rookie detective?
Right.
To cover 4 different
crime scenes. Right. Detective Deal, who was on the homicide unit for 6 months.
But the last election was all based on the state's attorney's office not doing their job.
Their job, right. Never the police department.
And this was a city council person, not just an average Joe.
Right.
An elected official.
Councilman Ken Harris was, of course, city council,
former elected official at the time.
Fourth councilmatic district, and of course, with everything that's gone on politically, he could have found himself again inside of City Hall, as we saw the removal of Sheila Dixon and how all of that created empty seats on the council. So, you know, clearly what we see is that this was one of our best that was taken from us. But this jury now has to decide, and I think based on the evidence, that they could not convict these three young men because, one, there's no motive, two, there's no weapon, and the DNA evidence is very, very, very flawed regarding what's been presented to the jury.
Okay, now did some false witnesses get created? Because the lady who was in the car, who was the second lady alleged to have been in the car,
yes,
said that one of the young men had dreadlocks.
Yes, she said that.
Which clearly wasn't the case. What's the latest on that since the last report we got from you?
She hasn't changed her story regarding that one of the shooter had dreadlocks, but you had a recent witness that came forward who was on the witness stand also, Mr. Edie, who said that he was sitting in his car at the Domino's Pizza and he heard a loud bang, and when he turned around he saw three young men running toward Loch Raven, which is the opposite direction from what Keith Covington and the employees inside of the Havens Lounge said that these three gentlemen ran. So you're talking about perhaps 3, if not 6, total robbers that they're talking about that was inside of the Havens Lounge and outside of the Havens Lounge as well.
Have there been any charges of lying?
No. You even had one young lady, Elizabeth Showers, who in her purse was found gloves as well as a bandana as well as some marijuana, and she was never charged for the marijuana that was inside of her purse that night that was found. And I talked to witnesses that were there, and those who were there, whose name, as I said, I would not reveal on camera, who said that they were already told that there was going to be a robbery that night, as well as we haven't heard a 911 call, Donnie. So from Mr. Edie to Elizabeth Showers to Keith Covington to Monica Foreman Robinson, we have not heard a 911 call. We have not heard from the paramedics who came on the scene and took Ken Harris not to Good Sam, which is 3-4 blocks up the street, but they took him not to Union Memorial 3-4 blocks down the street, but took him all the way to Johns Hopkins. We've not heard from the doctor who tried to revive him and provide him with some type of comfort before eventually declaring him dead at Johns Hopkins Hospital. So there's a lot more to this story that we've not heard during the trial.
According to your team, have any elected officials besides Frank Conaway come down to the trial?
City Council President Jack Young attended one day for about 30 minutes, but no other elected official, from City Council to delegates to senators to congressmen to the governor, have attended the trial of these three young men.
But how many people showed up at Ken Harris's funeral?
All of them showed up at the funeral with the exception of Mayor Sheila Dixon at that time and City Council President Jack Young.
I think then Mayor Dixon was out of town, but she was out of town. Seen the family. Any final thoughts?
Well, I just think that we ask the citizens of Baltimore to continue to pray, to continue to stay watchful and vigilant, that the truth comes out regarding what really happened to our brother, Councilman Ken Harris. Because as I said before, when they can take one of our best and there's no outcry and there's no clamoring for justice, then what does that say to the rest of the citizens in the city of Baltimore? And what does that say to the other elected officials in the city of Baltimore? Who could be next? Could be you.
You're on the radio every Tuesday through Saturday, 12 noon on 1590 WFBR?
That's correct.
1590 AM.
Through Saturday, 1590 AM, WFBR, 12 noon.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Keep watching BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth.